Trespassing. That's the word the HOA president screamed in my face the moment I set foot on my own grandfather's ranch. Imagine that being accused of breaking into land your family had owned since 1962, land that wasn't even in her HOA. By the time she came storming across my driveway at 7 in the morning, waving fake ancestry charts, I knew my peaceful inheritance had just turned into a suburban war zone. My name's Kevin Miller, and 2 months earlier my grandfather passed away and left me his 25-acre ranch in Florida. To me, it was paradise rolling hills, massive oak trees, a house full of memories. It wasn't just land. It was family history documented on deeds and surveys going back 60 years. And, most importantly, it sat outside the jurisdiction of Sunset Valley Estates, HOA. Their whole neighborhood was built in the 80s, decades after my family already owned the place. I thought that meant peace and independence. I was wrong. That Tuesday morning, I was hauling in the last of my furniture when she appeared, Catherine Stone, HOA president, dressed like she was going to a board meeting at dawn. Blazer, pressed pins, flashing makeup perfect, and a stack of laminated genealogy charts in hand. She marched down my driveway like a prosecutor about to deliver closing arguments. Then she pointed at my house and shouted, "Get off my family's sacred land!" Dogs barked in chorus. Curtains twitched open, and suddenly I was the spectacle. Me holding a coffee mug on my own porch, feeling like a criminal. My hand shook so hard the coffee sloshed over my wrist. Anger, sure, but also humiliation, because no matter how ridiculous she sounded, the neighbors only heard her voice. I tried reasoning. I had proof stacked in folders, deeds, tax records, official surveys, even a statement from the county clerk that my property predated their HOA. But Catherine didn't care. She declared she'd return every single day until I confessed to stealing her ancestral land. She even used the phrase, historical injustice. Then she spun on her spotless sneakers and stormed off like she'd won a battle. I stood there wondering what pharmaceutical cocktail could make someone think this was a productive use of retirement. The next morning, true to her word, she came back. Only this time, she wasn't in a blazer. She was in a full Victorian morning dress, veiled jewelry, the works. She set up a folding table at my property line, arranged props like a stage altar, and wailed to the sky about dead relatives buried beneath my grass. Joggers stopped, kids gawked, neighbors whispered. It was a performance. My land had become her theater, and me, I was the unwilling co-star. Every day, she escalated. First, the genealogy scrolls, then a $60 antique compass she claimed could find her ancestors' footsteps, then a pawn shop metal detector to search for lost heirlooms. She even hired backup actors she found online to pose as a grief counselor and family historian. They stood there nodding solemnly $50 an hour while she screamed about ancestral rights. I watched equal parts horrified and impressed by the commitment. She wasn't just angry, she was method acting a full-blown religion of HOA entitlement. And while she played a priestess at my fence line, I was unraveling inside. I'd moved here to find peace, and now I woke up every morning bracing for her show. I'd catch myself thinking, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I missed some obscure rule, some technicality in the inheritance. At one point, I even considered packing up and selling. The humiliation was that heavy, the isolation unbearable. Neighbors avoided me. I felt like the intruder on my own family land. Then came the note. A folded piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. She's not what she seems. A restraining order prevents direct contact. A friend. No signature. No explanation. Just those words. It chilled me. Someone was watching her closely. Someone who knew her history but couldn't step forward. Suddenly, it wasn't just me versus a crazy HOA president. There was a shadow player in this drama, and that changed everything. The more notes I got, the deeper the mystery. Detailed schedules of her routines, even psychological profiles. Whoever was helping me knew her down to the minute, what time she practiced grief faces in her bathroom mirror, when she rotated costumes, when she planted fake jewelry. At first, I thought it was Tommy, my retired mechanic neighbor who'd seen too much and had nothing better to do. But his records were scribbled on napkins Tuesday, black dress Wednesday compass. Amateur notes. Meanwhile, the anonymous files I got were professional, clinical, almost law enforcement level. Whoever this was had lived with her, studied her, maybe even loved her once. That's when I discovered the name David Miller on mail still arriving at her house. Divorce papers, counseling records. It clicked her ex-husband. The restraining order in the note suddenly made sense. David couldn't confront her directly, but he could warn me. And he did in the only way the law allowed. Knowing I wasn't crazy, that she'd pulled these stunts before, flipped a switch in me. The shame turned into anger. I stopped wondering if I should give up. I started fighting back, calling county surveyors, documenting her antics, keeping every fake chart and permit she waved around. Because this wasn't just harassment. It was psychological warfare, and I was done playing the victim. Then came the breaking point. Catherine escalated from performances to a full-on encampment. She pitched a survival tent at my fence, set up poster boards accusing me of desecration, even dragged out a portable toilet. She announced she would maintain an eternal vigil until justice was done. And she bought a megaphone. At all hours, she blasted ancestral violation alerts, turning my ranch into her personal radio station. Neighbors called it Radio Catherine. They hated it, but they also hated me because I was the reason she was doing it. Her voice carried for blocks, reading fake legal documents and sacred rites to the night sky. She didn't just want to harass me, she wanted an audience. And God help us, she got one when the local news picked it up. The headline, "Camping, Karen Claims Ancestral Burial Rites." It went viral. People laughed, shared memes, but living next to it wasn't funny. It was hell. Finally, the county intervened. Zoning officers, mental health services, even members of her own HOA board showed up. She responded by climbing my fence, megaphone in hand, screaming, "I am the high priestess of ancestral guardians. This land bows to me." Her voice cracked. Her body shook, but she refused to come down. The counselor tried reasoning. She shouted about betrayal, about a husband who documented everything and planned revenge. She knew. She knew David was out there watching. Her paranoia wasn't wrong, it was just twisted by her breakdown. For 2 hours, she ranted, part sermon, part accusation, until her voice gave out and her body slumped. The professionals helped her down and convinced her to accept voluntary evaluation. Papers spilled from her purse. Divorce filings. David's name, his forwarding address. Proof of everything I'd suspected. Proof that her war on my land was never about land at all. It was about losing control of her life and trying to claw it back through theater. As the ambulance doors closed, I saw a man standing by the parking lot of the mental health facility. Middle-aged, weary, carrying months of exhaustion in his eyes. When he walked toward me, I recognized the tone I'd been reading in those anonymous notes. He extended his hand and said, "Kevin, I'm David Miller. I've been your anonymous helper for the past 3 weeks." And just like that, the ghost in the shadows had a face. Catherine was gone, stripped of her title, stripped of her stage, finally getting the help she needed. And I was left on my porch, staring at my grandfather's ranch, hearing silence for the first time in weeks. The battle was over. The land was mine again. And if there's one thing I learned, it's this: sometimes the loudest voice in the room is just covering up the deepest silence inside.